Hello friends, my name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. So if you didn't know, today is International Trans Day of Visibility, and to celebrate that, I wanted to talk about my 10 favorite trans and non-binary books with you guys. I wanted to bring you these recommendations on this day today so that we can all celebrate together, read good books written by and for and about our trans and non-binary friends. So that's what we're gonna do in this video today. Like I mentioned, 10 recommendations for you. I have 5 middle grade or YA recommendations and then 5 adult recommendations, so I'm gonna kind of split the video like that. But yeah, all 10 of these books are 5-star favorite books. I love them so much, and they all have trans or non-binary representation in either the main character or the love interest. And all of these books are also written by queer, trans, or non-binary authors, so they're all like own voices, lived experience type of books. Not that other books aren't as valid, but these just also happened to be written by queer, trans, and non-binary authors, so I wanted to bring a light to that as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. I am going to start with the YA middle grade section, and the first book I actually want to recommend is a middle grade book, and that is Hazel Bly and the Deep Blue Sea by Ashley Herring Blake. Going into this book, I didn't realize it had trans representation, but the love interest in this book is non-binary. It's just a really cute, really heartwarming book. So if you didn't know, this book follows our main character, Hazel Bly. Hazel Bly is going through a lot of grief, and she has been for the last 2 years when she lost her mother in a freak kayaking accident. She's left with her other mom and her younger sister. Her other mom isn't really dealing with this grief in the best way, I would say. She's kind of a bit absent in Hazel's life, and so Hazel almost feels like she's lost both of her parents. She's only like 12 also, so this is a lot of heaviness on her shoulders at a very young age. I do think at its core it is like a very beautiful, heartwarming story about Hazel and her mom kind of coming back together, and also Hazel allowing herself to kind of like live again and trust people and become friends with people. Her mom has kind of moved her around from place to place over the last 2 years, so she really doesn't feel like she's able to put down roots. All she really wants to do is go back to her previous home in California. Hazel's really having a hard time, but she does find solace in this group of friends that she meets in her new town in Maine. Her new friends are like obsessed with this mermaid myth. Hazel kind of falls into it with them, and like I mentioned, she does have a like little cute, sweet, innocent like coming of age romance with one of her friends, Jules, who, as I mentioned before, is non-binary, and it's just very cute and sweet and very like first love beginnings, coming of age, feeling things out. Just so cute and sweet and innocent, and I loved it. And this book in general is just a very emotional read, but a very good one. It's written so well. All the characters are so lovely. I did want to pummel Hazel's mom a little bit. But overall, just a really sweet, really cute read that I would recommend to anyone. It was really good. The next YA book I want to talk about is Self-Made Boys by Anna Marie McLemore. This is a queer retelling of The Great Gatsby, where, you guessed it, Nick and Gatsby fall for each other. And it's also really perfect because Nick and Gatsby find themselves as kindred spirits. They are both trans boys, and so in this retelling, they kind of, like I said, our kindred spirits find each other and have a bit of a romance. And it's complicated a bit by the fact that Nick the whole time thinks Gatsby is in love with Daisy still, but Daisy and Jordan, really the true, I think, intent behind The Great Gatsby is explored within this book, which I love. This is just such a beautiful retelling. It was so lovely, so wonderfully written and well done, in my opinion. Anna Marie McLemore, their writing is just immaculate. It is so beautiful. Some of the best writing ever, I think, comes from them. They are just so incredibly talented, and so I would recommend this book for that alone. But regardless, it's also just a really good story with very, like, so much like pining and longing and and queerness baked into this like classic story that's so fun to, I feel like, reimagine it in this way. So I really loved this one. I think it is so beautiful, just very well done, and definitely one of my favorite books with trans characters. One of my favorite books in general, but specifically one of my favorite books with trans characters. Speaking of retellings, I also would like to recommend Most Ardently by Gabe Cole Novoa. I think that this is in like the same remixed classics series. They're kind of like companion books, multi-author series where all of these authors took these classic stories and reimagined them as YA books. these two are queer. I'm not sure if the rest of the series is, if that's the point, or if it's just retellings, but anyway, Most Ardently is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, in which Elizabeth Bennet is actually Oliver Bennet, and he is a trans boy. So I feel like if misgendering is very difficult for you, I wouldn't recommend this book, because Oliver is only out to so many people, and so many people still know him by his dead name, by his assigned at birth persona. So it is a bit difficult at times to hear characters in the book call him by the wrong name and that kind of thing. So I do think it's handled well. I do think it's handled in a way that was bearable to me personally, but of course I'm cis, so I can't really speak on how that would affect anyone else. The author is trans though, and so I trusted their perspective on this. But there is a author's note at the beginning of this book that I would obviously recommend reading to see if it would be the right fit for you. But personally, I did really enjoy this book, because that aside, like at its core, it is this beautiful story. I really did enjoy how it flipped the concept of, like, in Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet's pretty free-spirited, strong-willed, doesn't need no man kind of person, and Mr. Darcy seems like he doesn't like women, doesn't want to marry anyone. Of course, they find out he's just, like, kind of shy and awkward. But in this book, it kind of flips that idea on its head and explains other reasons why these two might not be super interested in a typical marriage, because Oliver is a trans man and Darcy is gay. And so basically in this book, these two meet. They have the same, like, bad first impression meeting from Pride and Prejudice, but of course Oliver does not meet Darcy as himself. Later on though, Oliver does meet Darcy as himself, and they form this friendship. Then Oliver gets this rumor that Darcy, like, might be gay. He doesn't dare hope that there can be some kind of, like, mutual affection going on, but there's a lot of, like, pining in this book. There's a lot of longing in this book. As far as I know, I think it did follow, like, the story of Pride and Prejudice fairly well, but I did really enjoy this queer interpretation of it, and I just thought it was really good. It is a little bit difficult to see Oliver worry about coming out to his parents, but honestly, like, if you're worried about that, I really enjoyed how that was done. It was done really well, very sweet. I was just very happy with how all of that worked out. So it really is, like, at the end of the day, a HEA book. So definitely loved this a lot, thought it was really good, and would certainly recommend. I also want to shout out an OG favorite of mine, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This YA book is more kind of on the fantasy side of things, and it is so good. It follows a trans main character named Yadriel, and Yadriel, his family is having a lot of trouble accepting his real gender. This is kind of an issue because in Yadriel's family, the men of his family are brujos, they're witches, and so in order to, like, prove himself capable, Yadriel goes through the, like, ritual to become a brujo, and part of that is summoning a ghost. And so he does summon a ghost, but something goes wrong because this ghost happens to be this boy named Julian who goes to Yadriel's school. When the ghost that he was actually trying to summon was, like, his murdered cousin or something, because he wanted to set him free. But Julian shows up, and Julian does not want to go quietly into death. Julian really wants to find out what happened to him. I think he doesn't remember or know how he died, and so he's determined to figure that out before he agrees to go quietly into death. And so Yadriel and Julian both kind of team up so that they can both get what they want out of it, and they have a little romance along the way. They realize that they really like each other, but this is kind of a problem considering Julian is a ghost. So this is a really cute, kind of campy, ridiculous, fun story, but it's also, like, a very richly told story. It's one, very well written, and two, I really enjoyed all of the, like, cultural references and folklore and things like that were woven into Yadriel's story and his relationship, like, with his family and with his calling of, like, being a witch, being a brujo. So I have such fond memories of reading this book. I really, really loved it, and it is definitely one that has stuck with me for a long time because I think I probably read this book in, like, 2020 or 2021, and I still love it. I still think so highly of it, and so I would 100% recommend this one as well. And the last book in the YA category that I would like to recommend is Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. Now, I feel like this book holds a special place in my heart, even though this one is very difficult to read with our current political climate. I will say it is kind of politics heavy and, like, the government taking away our rights kind of way, but it's also a really good story, and This author is a trans man and he graduated from my alma mater, George Mason University in Virginia. So I feel like a special connection to this book because I'm like, this is so cool that this guy that went to my school is writing all these books with trans main characters and out here doing the thing. Like, it's really cool. So I really like want to shout out his books for that reason, but they're also really fucking good. At least this one is. This is the only one I've read. So Hell Followed With Us is a story about a young trans boy named Benji, and Benji is currently on the run. He has escaped from the like evangelical cult that he was raised in, and this cult just so happens to have like released this terrible Armageddon that has decimated the world's population, which is crazy and horrible. But when Benji ends up cornered, he actually ends up getting rescued by this group of local teens that are kind of leading this resistance out of the LGBTQ youth center. And the kind of leader of this group is named Nick. Nick is gorgeous. Benji has a crush on Nick, but the problem is Nick also knows Benji's secret, and that secret is that the bioweapon created by this cult has infected Benji, and Benji is like slowly turning into a monster, but still Nick offers Benji shelter with his group and like a place to be, a place to belong, and some protection as long as Benji like learns to control this monster, uses like the power for good to protect their little like ragtag found family. And the tagline of this book is a furious queer debut novel about embracing the monster within and unleashing its power against your oppressors. This is such a good book. It really was not a difficult read. I think I actually read this like election week here in the US. Not the best time for that. Not the best time for that, as it all felt very real. But I also feel like that's why this book is so important to read, because this feels like this is a political read. Like, this is a political read. Reading is political, and I want to live in a world where queer people, trans people use their powers to fight back. Like, that's kind of what this book is about. The entire like monster thing is like an allegory for transness and kind of like accepting who you are, accepting your power, coming into your power, owning like who you are. And I thought that was really powerful and really well conveyed, and I really did enjoy this book, and I really did enjoy the romance between Nick and Benji as well. I thought it was very cute and very sweet. Just a well-written, very powerful book that is just was so unique. It was such a unique read compared to everything else out there, and I just really enjoyed it, and I would recommend, although just be warned, be forewarned that it is kind of political and some parts feel a little bit too real. So if you're kind of in the US and you're like, I don't know if I can handle this right now, that's okay. Maybe read it sometime in the future, just add it to your TBR, but I do think that this one is worth a read and worth adding to your TBR if you haven't read it already. Okay, and now we can move into the adult section of this video. The following books are going to be like adult reads. They might be a little spicy, they might be a little steamy, but they are all queer romances with trans main characters. So if you've been around my channel for a minute, I'm sure you'll probably guess that I want to recommend The Prospects by KT Hoffman. I feel like I can't make a queer recommendations video without talking about this book. Eventually I'll run out of categories to talk about it in, but it definitely belongs in this video. Prospects by KT Hoffman is a queer contemporary sports romance following our main character Gene. Now, Gene is the first openly trans player in professional baseball. He's playing on a minor league team, and his life's really going great. He has everything that he's ever let himself dream for until a new player arrives on the team, Luis Estrada. Now, Luis and Gene kind of have some history, kind of go way back. They went to college together before Gene transitioned. They kind of had a bit of a falling out, haven't spoken to each other, are kind of rivals, kind of don't like each other. So Luis being traded to this team, not Gene's favorite thing in the world, especially when Luis is kind of assigned Gene's position and Gene has to play some other position, and they end up working directly together, but they have this rivalry, this dislike of each other that they can't get over. That Luis like really isn't playing very well, and so Gene is resenting him even more. But their coach is like, hey, listen, you guys need to work together, you need to figure this shit out, like do what you need to do. So I think Gene and Luis end up being like paired together as roommates, and they also start like working together outside of practice to kind of build up this like trust and camaraderie that they need to have on the field. This starts to allow them to kind of work through some of their like outside emotional issues, and they end up like forming this really sweet friendship that eventually progresses into a romance. Now, I really loved this book because it is just the epitome of trans joy, of queer joy. It is just such a beautiful story. Gene, like at his heart, is really just this very sunshiny, positive character. I loved the lesson in this book of how he learns to dream bigger for himself. I just found that so lovely and inspiring because it is true, like sometimes we're like, you know, well, life really is like pretty great comparatively to like what it used to be, although things are kind of moving backwards rapidly right now, so I don't know how true this is anymore, but there's always more, there's always farther, and it's like not wrong to wish for those things and go for them, and like they happen for Jean in this book, and it's just all so beautiful and lovely and wonderful, and I love it so much. I love Jean and I love Luis and I loved their romance. It was so sweet and so cute and so like communicative and healthy, but like with the previous like enemies to lovers vibes going on, but then once they got together it was very sweet and communicative and emotional. So I really love this book. It is one of my all-time favorite romances ever, and please, if I haven't convinced you already, please let this be the time that it does and read it. Next on my list is Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. This is a queer Regency romance following our trans main character Viola. Now, Viola was wounded on the battlefield. She used to be in the army. Everyone presumes her dead, and so she takes this opportunity to finally live as herself. Problem is that when she does this, her best friend, her childhood best friend, the Duke of Gracewood, thinks she is also dead, has no idea that she survived and still lives, and he is really racked with grief. And Viola didn't really realize that this was going to be a consequence of her living as herself. Viola now works as a lady's maid for her sister-in-law as a way to kind of stay close to her like remaining family. They accept her, and that's kind of the position she keeps to make sure the people outside of her family are none the wiser for her own safety and whatnot. And they are still friends, like in correspondence with the Duke of Gracewood, and the Duke of Gracewood's sister writes to Viola's sister-in-law and it's like, my brother's kind of going crazy, and so they go to visit. Viola like sees for the first time in like 2 years, like the Duke of Gracewood is still racked with grief and guilt over him thinking she's dead. He's not in a good place, and so Viola is determined to help him in whatever means necessary, and she just is kind of dreading the day that the Duke of Gracewood like finally realizes who she is, but she also can't help like forming these feelings with him and falling in love with him, and he is falling in love with her as well, and it's all just a bit of a mess. I don't want to say any more and like spoil anything for you, but just know that this is another one of my favorite romance books of all time. It is truly such a beautiful book. It is so good. This book made me sob, it made me laugh, it made me like have all the emotions. It was just one of the most beautiful romances I have ever read in my entire life. Just how much the Duke of Gracewood I don't know, I think his name is Justin. The way Justin respected Viola and loved her and just accepted her for who she was, and everything about her was just so beautiful. Like, it's what I want for like everyone in the world. And it was just, it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful book. It's so good. It's so good. So if you haven't read this one, also please read it, because it is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read in my life. It is so good. So good. I also want to recommend a new like recent favorite, and that is Junker 7 by Olive J. Kelly. This is probably the most underrated, least known books on this list, so definitely take this into consideration and read this book because it was so good and it is so criminally underrated. I actually got this book in my Rainbow Crate subscription, and I'm so glad that I did, because otherwise I probably would have never heard of it, never found it, never read it, but I loved it. It was so good. This is a queer sci-fi book. Our main character, Castor, is a non-binary lesbian, and their love interest, Juno, is a trans girl. Lots of gender queerness going on in this book, which we love. So Juno is a transgender activist leading the queer resistance. This is set in the future, but again, the world has kind of gone backwards and queer people are being persecuted and condemned by the government. So Juno is the leader of the resistance. Castor, on the other hand, has really just been in survival mode their whole life. They lost their family. They're just trying to live and survive. So they kind of think the whole activism thing is pointless because they feel like they can't really do anything, make any change, because all they're doing is trying to survive. But Castor is like a bounty hunter and kind of takes these odd jobs. They're also what's called a junker. They like go through junkyards and crashed ships and things and like find things to sell and pawn off, and then they also take these random jobs. So this random job comes through that's worth a lot of money, and Castor can't really just say no to it because it would be life-changing money. And so they go to see what it's all about, and it turns out the job is to smuggle Juno off planet because she's gotten into quite a pickle. Castor, like I said, doesn't really want to be involved in the resistance or aiding and abetting a person who's technically like a criminal of the state. And so they say no at first, but Juno does convince them. And then it becomes this story of them racing against time, racing against the bad guys to get Juno where she needs to go. Along the way, Castor kind of has a bit of a change of heart, starts to fall for Juno, starts to understand her cause and her passion, and maybe there are things that they could do to fight for her. This was just such a like fun, unique read. I loved the characters so much. I loved their interactions. This book is just really written well. Like the characters are so fully developed. The world is really interesting. It definitely, again, is kind of political in that it really seems to mirror what's going on in our world, and I think that that is very purposeful in this book. Again, I'm here on the internet making a video about trans books that I love. Like, if that doesn't tell you that reading is political, I don't know what does. Like, it's important to read these stories, and I love them, and I loved this book so much, and like I said, very criminally underrated. It was so beautiful. I loved the romance, and I loved the like deeper meanings and commentary on politics and the way the world is, and fighting back, and like not giving up, and even little things making a difference. Like all of those messages I think are very important to hear, especially right now. And also like amidst all this turmoil, seeing like queer joy and happily ever afters. So important. So I really loved this book, and I definitely would recommend and want more people to know about it because it is so, like I said, underrated. The next book I want to recommend is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. This is the first Anita Kelly book that I ever read, and what made me really fall in love with them as an author. In this book, we're following Dahlia and London. Dahlia and London are both competing on this reality television cooking show, which if you didn't know, I love reality TV kitchen cooking shows. Like, it's one of the few things that I watch on TV other than Drag Race. I love books about it. Dahlia and London both have very different reasons for coming on the show. Dahlia is recently divorced and is coming on the show kind of to reinvent herself, prove to herself that she can survive on her own, those kinds of things. London, on the other hand, is going to prove the haters wrong. They announced their pronouns and their like identity as non-binary live on TV, and are the first openly non-binary contestant on this show, and so they really want to prove themselves that they're capable and able to like hang with the best of them. London is very like focused and single-minded. Dahlia is a bit of like a whirlwind, a klutz, and so they're kind of like opposites attract. And I think they also have a bit of a bad first impression because I'm pretty sure Dahlia like spills something all over London, and London is like, I don't have time for this. This is crazy. London's also like pretty shy and quiet, where Dahlia is more like bubbly and sunshiny. They have a very like balance of personalities here. They definitely, neither of them really plan to come on the show to fall in love, but fall in love that they do. And they kind of have to figure out if it's just them being in this little reality TV show bubble, or if their love can survive in the outside world. So I really loved this book. I definitely feel like a queer romance set on a reality TV cooking show is like a book written specifically for me. I loved it so much. I read this book in a single day. It's a really quick, fast, easy read also, which is nice. And it's really just another book about queer joy and happiness, and it's so lovely. Especially like while reading it's political, sometimes it also is nice to just read a fluffy, happy-go-lucky, low-angst book with queer characters in it. You know, like, it's nice to escape reality for a while, and this is one of those books that will help you escape reality, and so I would recommend for that. And yeah, I just love this one so much. And the last book that I want to recommend in this video is another new favorite. I just recently read this one, and this book actually just recently came out like 2 weeks ago, and that is A Gentleman's Gentleman by TJ Alexander. This is another queer Regency romance, and it follows two trans men who fall in love. Lovely. It was so well written, it's so beautiful, and it's also so funny and campy and joyful, and I fucking loved it. In this book, we're following Christopher. Christopher is an Earl. At the beginning of the book, we're not really quite sure how he is a trans man that's an Earl. There's some kind of like backstory that we don't get right at the beginning about his family and how he came into his title and his fortune. But his father's will does say that Christopher must marry before his 25th birthday in order to keep the earldom and the inheritance and all of that stuff. Christopher needs to go experience the season and get a wife. He is aware that he's not likely to find a love match, and so his plan is to find a woman who will be secretive and will accept sort of a business arrangement. But Christopher is also pretty reclusive. He does not typically leave his country estate. Going to London is a bit of an ordeal. He also only has 2 members of his staff. So he needs to hire a valet for appearances to go to London with him, and so in enters James Harding. Christopher hires James to be his valet, kind of in name only, again, for appearances. He does not actually want anyone to help him get dressed because he's keeping his identity, his transness, a secret. But James quickly manages to earn Christopher's trust, and Christopher begins to harbor a bit of a ill-advised crush on James. All this drama kind of starts to happen and unfold on, will Christopher get married, but he loves James, like, how could they can't really be together in this world, and also can Christopher trust anyone with his secret? Like, all of these things are kind of the conflict of the story, and really it's just kind of a character study of Christopher and his relationship with James. And it was just a really fun, really lovely queer romance. I really loved it. It was so good. It was so well written. I loved the characters so much, and their romance was so sweet, and I loved all of like the pining and the longing. It was so good, and I laughed out loud so much at this book. Like, it was really funny. It was honestly hilarious. Like, I loved it so much. So as a newer release, I definitely would recommend checking this one out because it was so good and so fun. I loved it. All right, and that is my video. Those are my top 10 favorite books with trans or non-binary characters in them. I love all of these books so much. They are all 5-star favorites, and so I would wholeheartedly recommend any of them that sound interesting to you, and I hope you check them out. If you're interested in any of them, I will have links in the description. Also linked in the description are my social media links if you want to follow me elsewhere. I also would love, if you are not already, for you to subscribe and stick around. I try to post 2 videos about queer books a week on this channel, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would love to have you, love for you to stick around. If you liked this video, please give it a like and leave me a comment down below. It really helps me out. With that, and the light dying, I think that is all I have to say. So thank you so much for watching this video and for being here. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.